Hello, I'm Ash Beatson and welcome to episode 10 of Comparing Bookkeeping Software. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at the chart of accounts in each of the different software offerings, and whether it's called chart of accounts, account categories, nominal codes, it's basically the same really, pretty much in each. And you need them in order to be able to create your bookkeeping entries, whether it's a bank account, whether it's a different balance sheet or profit and loss category, so that your reports are going to be generating as you expect. So it's important that you do use the correct category, when you are setting those up. So we're going to take a look at those different chart of account category options in each of those now, starting off with looking at what we've got in Sage. So logged into Sage, I can go to my settings and business settings, and I'll find the chart of accounts within here, and within this financial settings block I can select chart of accounts. So with our chart of accounts open, we immediately see a list of all of our chart of account categories. There is an option towards the top to search, so if I actually just type in property as an example, and that's going to filter that list, and if I remove the text, that'll put everything back into place. We've got this option included in the chart, so if you've got any accounts which have been excluded, and I'll come back to that in a moment, you can filter that list. In fact, if I now click on search, I've got one account that's been excluded, and I'll just put that back to all for a second. And you can also filter that by a particular balance sheet profit and loss category. So if I go that to overheads, again, that's going to filter that list, so I can just see what my overhead categories are. So that's pretty neat. If I need to create a new chart of account, then it's pretty simple to do so. There's a new ledger account there, so let me just go straight ahead and do that. So let me just give this a name. So let's just call it maybe software costs, and we can display it as the same. And I'll give this a code. I'm not quite sure whether I have to give it a particular number range, but let's give it any old range to see what happens. And if I go to the category, this is going to be an overhead, and I can put a default VAT rate against that, so let's put 20% standard. Now what we have at the bottom is the visibility, and what that means is that will this account be visible when you use it when creating a particular type of transaction. So at the moment it's defaulting for purchases like supplier invoices and other types of bank payments or other payments. So perhaps if that wasn't visible on those, then I'll only see it on a journal or a report. So they're grayed out, so they are the default. You'll always be able to use it on a journal, and it will always be visible on a report. But if it should be available to use on everything, then you could then tick all of the boxes. Unlikely that you'd use it on a sale as well as a purchase, but you've got the option there if you wanted to. And then once it's set up, we can actually save that. So let me just choose to save. Okay, only ledger accounts with a category of bank or credit card can be visible in bank. Right, good point. Because it's not a bank account, so I'm not going to use it as a bank. And so now let me try to save. Perfect. So we can see that's exactly what I want. I don't want to double create an account. So very simple to do so. And if I actually scroll down my list, I don't know if I do need to do a refresh or not. I might actually need to do a little refresh because I've only just created that. So I've created within overheads, and let's have a look. Oh, I've got more than one page. There we go. So if I go on to my next page, there we go, because I gave it this really odd number. So we can give it pretty much any number that we wish. What I would probably find out, and I'll double check that, is the number will actually sort what order it comes up on your report within those different categories. So because I've given that a very large account number, it will probably fall at the bottom of my profit and loss report. I will double check that though. Yes, you can see that I've quickly created an entry to software costs, and in the profit and loss, because of the number range, that's falling right at the bottom of that category. So that's exactly what that does. Okay, so just back to the chart of account list. If in future I decided not to use that category again, so if I went back to that software costs, the row goes in a light grey, so it means I can just click on it and make some edits. I can put remove a tick from that box, included in chart, and by doing that it basically removes it from use. So it will still be, oh no, I can't, still leather transactions with transactions must be included in your chart of accounts, so because it's been used. Good point. But perhaps I can just save it or take the ticks out of the boxes, so it will no longer be available for me to use on a supplier bill or similar. Yeah, so there I've just learned something. If you haven't used any of those categories at all, so the other day I did create one quickly and then excluded it from the chart, and that's why I was able to. So for example, if I go on that excluded, I created an extra bank but I didn't need it, so now that's just not in use at all, so excluded from chart. But had I put any entries against it, then as we've just found out, I wouldn't be able to exclude it. The majority, pretty much nearly all of those accounts that I have on that list, and I'll just bring that back into view, were already there in place. Now there's quite a lot there. I mean, I'm not sure how many on the page. Let's say, well over 50. Oh, there we go. Yeah, 50 records. So 50 records, and there's basically, what have we got there? 3. So a good 100 and, let's say, I don't know, maybe 130 records possibly by default. Quite often, I personally don't like to use too many chart of account categories if possible. So if I just actually set this up and found actually I don't need half of those, I would have to go in here and manually go in there. Whereas I think a little batch feature wouldn't go amiss for that sort of thing. So just my little tip there to Sage, maybe a batch remove or exclude from chart would be useful if I was using it on a regular basis. Okay, that's our Sage chart of accounts. Let's take a look now at what we've got in Zoho Books. So I've got my Zoho Books account open now, and I can access my chart of accounts. So from within the left menus, I've got accountant and chart of accounts from within there. So I've got my chart of accounts all listed. You can again filter this list by all accounts. You've also got, I don't know if I've got any inactive accounts. I don't have any inactive accounts, or just my income accounts, or just my expense, my overhead type accounts. So we can filter that list. What I also have against each of my account categories is a little box or icon. So if the account is locked, so I can't delete it, there is a little padlock against that, so bank fees and charges, so I can't edit that particular, or I can edit it, so I could change the name. So if I click on the actual account details, I can make some changes to how it's named. So at the top there, I've got this edit option, so I could call it something else, but I can't actually fully remove that type of account. So I'll just come back there, and let me just remove that from there for a moment. Now if I wanted to remove a lot of these accounts, I'm not actually using them at all, then I could actually look through this list, because again I've been provided with quite a few by default. So if I didn't need let's say automobile expense or rent, janitorial, postage, I've got some bulk actions at the top. So I could choose to mark them all as inactive, or let me just try and delete them all. I'm not sure if any of these have got any transactions against them. The selected accounts will be deleted and cannot be retrieved later. Am I sure? So if they've never been used, I can click OK. And one of them couldn't be deleted because I must have put some entries against the automobile expense, so I can click close. So that's good. If I'm not quite sure whether I perhaps do I need to use some of these in future. So obviously automobile expense, I don't really want to use it anymore, but perhaps I've got a few there as well. I could choose then to make them inactive, so to stop me from using them again. Obviously they'll still appear on the report if they've got any entries against them, so that's pretty good. And I'm assuming then if I looked at all of my inactive accounts, there we go, inactive, here we go, inactive accounts, so there's 4 that I've just made inactive. Then again I've got the same thing there at the top where I could select those and then actually make them as active, mark as active again. So that's good, that's pretty cool. Come back to all of my accounts. If I move over, what's this little settings cog that we have here? Oh, again, I can just do that manually, one at a time. So I can go in and edit it, mark it as inactive or delete if allowable. If I want to just create a new account, there's a new account category at the top there. So again, I've got a type. So let me choose something expense. Again, I'll call that software cost. So I've got some tips on the right there of what type of cost would go in there. Well, we've got advertising, marketing, business travel, that type of expense cost. You can make this a sub account. So if you have sort of multiple accounts that are of a similar nature, electric and gas, you might group as utilities. I've got software costs. I did have IT equipment in there, so I could, I've got IT and internet expenses, so I could have software as a subcategory of IT and internet expenses, and that will mean that it's going to basically group it within my profit and loss report. Again, that's pretty nice. I've got the option of putting in a account number, so let's put a number in there, and I can add some notes if I wish. And there's also the ability of adding this category to a watch list on the dashboard. So in a previous episode when we looked at sort of accounting dashboards, and then that particular account will display, and we can see the value of transactions that have been posted to it over a given period. So I don't want to add it to the watch list, so I'll just save it as is. So I should find I've got a search at the top there, which I almost missed because it's almost hidden in the bar at the top. So if I search for software, again, that's filled to that list, and I can find that and make some changes to it if necessary. You've also got the option there to export and import chart of accounts. Interestingly, in this view there is a sort of find an accountant's link as well. Not a bad shout really, because if I'm a small business owner I might not understand chart of accounts at all, so actually having that there is not a bad thing. So there we go, there's your sort of chart of accounts in Zoho. Again, very easy to set up and edit. Let's look next at what we've got in Free Agent. Alright, so with my Free Agent file open, you'll find your accounting categories within your sort of business settings. So if I come into my settings, you've got your settings there, and then you've got your accounting, tax and VAT, and you've got your accounting categories. So that's where you open them up from. Now at the top you do have this drop down next to accounting categories, but it's not related to other accounting categories activities. It's just taking you to different areas within some of your settings. So if I was actually wanted to look at my communication preferences, then there's a shortcut to those settings, and then I could come back within here and choose my accounting categories, and we're back there. Your accounting categories are actually split into, well, we've got 7 sections here. So we've got income, admin, cost of sales, capital assets, current assets, liabilities, and equity. So you can click within each of those tabs and we can see what we've got in place. You'll notice against each of your account categories you've got a description and a number. And what you'll also see is whether this is a custom category, so one that's been created, or one that's already built in, or has items, or is locked. So basically, you've got some locked categories. You'll also have, if I come to admin expenses, what we have here is the ability of editing. So I can come in and edit any of these accounts that are already in place. So what I have here is, let's look at childcare vouchers. So I could go to edit that, and if I don't need childcare vouchers, I could go to delete that and remove it, and it's no longer required. I can see there's a little icon that's indicating that's one I've actually created. So I've got software cost within there. If I wanted to create another new one, I go to the new button. Let's do another overhead cost. So you'll notice as soon as you go to add new, it's always already asking you what type of category. Is it income? So one of those 7. Is it income? Is it admin? So admin being like your overheads, cost of sales, capital assets, liabilities. So let's put in another admin. And I'll put in here computer repairs. Now if I want to choose 222 again, because I've already got one in there, it shouldn't allow me to use that number. So I've got accounting and legal fees, because this is the type of cost that's reflected on my tax return. These aren't for accountancy fees, so I'll just choose that to be, actually I've got repairs and renewals, so I'll put that there. So this particular free agent file set up as a sole trader, where I've got the ability of preparing my tax return, so I can make sure that I use the correct tax return box. It is allowable for tax, and although I don't actually have VAT fully enabled, I can still select what would be the default VAT rate here. So if I choose to create that category, oh, I can't use that number, so let me just change that number, 223, and create the category. And there we have it. We can see there's my computer repairs, and we can also see on this view the tax reporting type and what the VAT rate would be on each. So pretty easy, I think, there to create your chart of account categories in Free Agent. Very clear view of the different types that we have. I think my only thing I would add or change possibly, like I suggested with Sage, is perhaps having a bulk delete option, because if I'm presented with all of these account categories as an accountant, sometimes I don't like this many, because a small business owner, they can get confused on what they need to use, and if we make it as sometimes simpler, we don't want them using loads of different categories sometimes. So I would probably like a little bulk delete, but that's just my preference. All right, but very nice either way. Let's have a look next at the chart of accounts in Xero. So with my Xero file open, you can find your chart of accounts. If you go into accounting, you should see chart of accounts here in this list within advanced. If you didn't see it there, then if I went to my sort of settings and then selected look for advanced settings, it's there and it's visible because I've actually it's got a star against it. If there was no star, it wouldn't appear in the menus. So got our chart of accounts. So in this view, what we can see is all of our chart of accounts because we've got all accounts selected. And then there are sort of half a dozen tabs where it then automatically filters it. Assets, that's current and fixed assets. You've got your liabilities, current and long-term liabilities, equity, expenses, revenue, and anything that's been archived. So if I take a look at my expenses, so if I looked through this list and I thought, okay, so I've got cleaning, consultancy, charitable donations, I don't need those. Entertainment costs, perhaps I don't need those either. Then you can either delete them or archive them. So if I chose to delete, it's going to remove them fully. But if I archive them, okay, so I just don't want to use them at the moment, they'll go into this archived list where I could then bring them back and use them again if I needed to. So that's pretty good. So I could just come back in there and restore them back into my account list. So let's come back to my expenses. I can make edits to them just by clicking on the link of the account. For that, well, I open it up and I can sort of change the name and the account number if I need to make changes. That's pretty simple to do. If I want to create a new account category, then at the top what I have is add an account or a bank account. So if it is a bank account, then I'll use the bank one. If it's an expense type of account, I'll go to the add an account. So I can choose the type. So I'll see whether it's a current asset, fixed asset. So again, you won't see the bank option in here because that's a different account type or the different option there. What I did notice here that you've got expense and overhead, where I found in the other software it's either an overhead, so Sage was overhead, and I think Zoho was expense. We had admin expense in Free Agent. So I'm not 100% sure what the difference is, apart from I think at looking over to the right, it's just where it's ordered within your report. So I can see on a profit loss report, you'll have expenses, so it'll be expenses, depreciation, and then overheads falling beneath that. So it's just placement on the report, I would imagine. So I'll treat that as an expense then. And we can give it a number or a unique code. So in fact, let me just put S22 and see if that works. And I'll put on S22 is available, so I can use that code, and I'll put software subscription and that's optional. Software subs in the so we've got the name and the description, which is more like a memo note if you wanted to put one in. What is the default VAT rate? Again, I've not actually enabled VAT fully on this particular file, but I could put in a default even without that. There is the option of displaying this account on the dashboard watch list. Again, per a previous video, you can allow this account to appear on the dashboard, so you'll see what this expenditure has been against this over a particular period. I don't need to do that. Don't want to use that within an expense claim, possibly. And can I enable payments to this account? Not 100% sure what that means, but I'm guessing I could put a bank payment directly and not necessarily use a supplier bill. That's what I'm just imagining at the moment. I've not tested that, so I'm not 100% sure without playing around with that. I will choose to save, and now that I've saved that, I should be able to search for it. So if I search for software, there we go. So that's the one I've just created, software subscription, and we already had IT software and consumables in there as well. I can see there's a year-to-date figure against that particular one. I can't sort of merge them together. If I had created them one by mistake and had values in the both, what I could do though is, again, I could delete that one if I didn't need that one any longer. So I could just choose to delete. I've selected to delete this account. It will be removed from any contacts using it as a default. Deleting accounts is permanent and cannot be undone. Okay. So that's fine. I think if it's never been used, you can delete it. Although I think I do prefer the option of just archiving. I think archiving is usually a safer one. At least you can always bring them back, even if you don't need to use them. Okay, so I'm just taking a look at what we have here. Oh, let me just close that down. So you've got the option of importing your account list, exporting the account list. So I'll just click on import. In fact, there's a template available, so we can obviously import a list of accounts and bring through opening balances possibly. So I'll just cancel that down. But yeah, it looks like it's pretty straightforward. Again, to create a chart of account code, nice and easy. You've got the tabs there to separate them out if you want to look at them on a filtered list, filtered view, as opposed to looking at everything on one page. That's pretty good. All right, so over to QuickBooks next. So in my QuickBooks file, let's have a look at the chart of accounts. You can get there from a couple of places. From transactions, you've got chart of accounts, the transactions and chart of accounts, and you can also access from your settings cog chart of accounts there. So in this view, we can see all of our chart of account categories. You've got the ability of filtering the list by just searching for the names. If I was to search for cash, putting in the name will filter that list, and then removing the text will remove that filter. We can also choose whether we display all the accounts or what's been created by us. And if I see what's been created by me. Created by me seems to be, I can't remember creating all of those. So that this is quite a new, so whether it's just not fully, or whether it means created by me as in my login, I actually need to try to find out exactly what that created by you means. If we look towards just the top right hand corner, you've got the option of running a report, which is basically a list of your chart of account categories. We've got the new, I'll come back to that in a moment, and you can also import your list of chart of accounts. There's a template that you can download, and then you can import your list in here as well. And if I take a look at the little tick box, so if I'm automatically presented with a list of accounts when I set this up. So I didn't create, I think the only one I actually remember creating is the cash on hand when I created a bank to import into. I don't think I created anything else. So if I found there was a lot of categories in here that I didn't actually need, so I could remove that, say these sort of asset categories, I could select all of those. And then at the top there's a batch actions where I could make them inactive. If VAT is enabled, because it isn't on this file, but if VAT had been enabled, you would be able to apply a default VAT rate in in bulk against those account categories as well. So I'll just make them inactive, and I'll choose yes, make inactive. And though they'll be hidden from view, if I wanted to bring those back into view, I could go to my settings cog, include inactive in this list, and then actually choose to search by the word delete. So anything that's been made inactive is actually got deleted in brackets now within the name. And I don't know if I can make them active again in bulk. No. So I can't bring them back, or I can't make them active back in bulk, but I'll have to do that one at a time. I could make that account active again. And then take the inactive out of my standard list, remove that text, and that brings everything back into view. If I want to create a new account category, pretty easy to do so. There is the new button at the top right. So I'll go to the new, I could give it a name. So let's go software subscription. So what type of account is it? So is it a sort of, we've got a mixture of balance sheet and profit and loss types here. So whether it's a debt or asset, if I come down. So the top section basically refer to your balance sheet accounts, and the lower section, so below equity, relate to your profit and loss. So whether it's an income, other types of income, cost of sales, expenses, or other expense. So let's call this as an expense. And then when we select our expense, you've got the option of giving it a description, which is just like an extra memo note. You don't need to do that. You can make that a sub account. So if you've got a parent account of a similar type of name, so we've got computer running costs I've already got in there, so I could actually have software subscription that will fall below computer running costs within my report. And if I look below, you can see how it would actually appear within my profit and loss. Computer, and then software subscription slightly indented. So this is quite a new feature, so you can sort of have a bit of an account preview within your profit and loss, or your balance sheet if it was a balance sheet account being created. We've got our detail type that was just towards the top there, and if you are using QuickBooks to prepare, whether it's a corporation tax return, if you're using if you're a limited company, and we've got the Pro Tax within QuickBooks, or as a sole trader when we're starting to actually prepare what the sole trader accounts tax return would look like. Again, you can make sure that it sort of falls within this sort of a detail type, and again this would fall under, I'll just put under Office General Admin for that type of cost, and then I'll save it. And again, if I were to search for that account, I can see software subscription. If there were any transactions against that, you could choose to run the report off the back of it. From the drop down, you've got the ability of editing it and also making it inactive too. If we go into the accounts and settings of the QuickBooks file, in the advanced area, you can actually enable chart of account numbers, and you can choose to display them on your reports as well. Now if I just close that down, so with that enabled, back to chart of accounts, you see that there is a number column available, and if I were to click on this pencil, you can sort of do a batch edit. So you could apply some numbers, whether that's 1201, let's put 1100, 105, and so on. And if I actually choose to save those changes, the number is attached to the name. So if you're doing a search, you can search either by number or you can search by name within there as well. So your chart of accounts, pretty straightforward in QuickBooks Online, and let's just have a little recap of what we've had a look at. Okay, so no surprise really that chart of account categories, nominal accounts, however you refer to them, are pretty much the same in all of the different software options that we've got. Some allow some bulk changes, some bulk archiving if you like. Some allow to completely remove a chart of account code if it's not been used, and others don't. There's some watch list options on a couple of them. There's sub account categories, on a couple. Sometimes I wonder, are they all getting very much the same? It won't surprise me. They are appearing to sort of morph to be all very, very similar. So hopefully not too much the same, because I think it is nice when there are some distinct differences between the different software options. Okay, so that's your chart of accounts. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find the content useful. I think in my next video I'm going to really concentrate then on looking at the project type features in each one, and how that actually works and how I can report against a project after recording some transactions against each of those. So we'll create a project, record entries against them, and report against them as well. Until next time, thank you.